Okay, gentlemen, so we are studying Hilchot De'ot. It's hard to translate the word De'ot into English, but I would call it personality traits, right? So there's different personality traits, and no individual, of course, is made of one trait because we have many different aspects to our personality. And just to summarize what we studied last time, and then we'll continue forward in a couple of minutes. But first, just if you will recall, Rambam started by analyzing the different personality traits. There's a spectrum for each trait, right? So anger, very, very angry, very easily angered, not angered at all, right? Different traits. A person who indulges in physical pleasures, a person who couldn't care less for physical pleasures, going all the way down. So everything has a spectrum. And what we learned is that the Torah, there's a misvat aseh of the halachta b'dracha. There's a misvat aseh to go to emulate the ways of God, to go in the pathways of God. And the correct placement on the spectrum of any given personality trait, what we've studied until now, is that the correct placement is always directly in the middle. So the Torah expects us to go directly in the middle. And now I want to ask the question, and how do you know that you're well balanced, that all of your traits are directly in the middle? Maybe we're fooling ourselves. What?
Because everybody else isn't.
Because everybody else isn't. Okay. Because everybody else isn't. That's one way. I think that the idea of halakha b'dracha says it all. We're obligated to emulate the pathways of God. God is compassionate. God is merciful. God is forgiving. God is patient. Right? All these traits. If you're a forgiving person who's merciful, who's patient, who has all of those traits, that's an indication that you're in the middle. You understand? Meaning, there's the internal traits that a person has. So in my mind, I know not to get angry. Okay. In my mind, I know not to be arrogant. In my mind, I know not to indulge in physical pleasures, right? That's the internal part. The external expression of those traits will be a merciful person, a compassionate person, a patient person, a person who does kindness unto others, a person who's interested in truth. There's so much like falsehoods in the world. So emet means you want the truth. You don't care about politics. You want the truth, right? So that's emet, right? You recognize kindness. You're willing to do kindness unto others, and so on and so on and so on. So that's the so you have the internal and you have the external. You understand the interplay between internal, which is you have to be directly in the middle. And how does that reflect itself externally? A person who goes in the ways of God. So that's the idea of Hilchot De'ot. That's what we studied. And now we're going to be starting a new chapter. Open it up. So again, page 1. Open in back of page 1 is Perek Beth. All right. So let's do it. And yeah, I was away. It was a nice trip. Mike, you were there also when I was there.
Yeah.
No, you were there this week or you were there last year? I'm gassed.
Me or Mike?
You.
I was there this week.
Right, exactly.
Wednesday to Tuesday.
Were you like in any of the Surfside in that area or different area?
No, I was only Surfside Friday night and Saturday.
I see. Where did you pray?
I was at Surfside. We prayed at the St. Regis.
You
I was there with you.
Exactly. Now I'm remembering. I was gassed. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, and you gave us those drinks. So you see what happened? I just want to tell you something. So I'm sitting down with my wife, having a nice meal Friday night. This is after the services, and we already drink a little. It's Shabbat. Nobody's driving. Nobody's making any phone calls. Nobody's going to send any text messages that he will later on regret. So it's Shabbat. So we have a little drink. It's a beautiful affair. And then Mike comes to us with these big drinks, which is a grapefruit tequila. So the idea of the grapefruit tequila is they have grapefruit, and inside they put a little tequila to make it, thing. But it wasn't really a grapefruit tequila, it was actually a tequila grapefruit. I don't know what the percentage was. And I'm so hungover from that I don't even remember. You're the one who gave us the tequila.
Your wife told me thank you, she said she enjoyed it.
She did, okay, very nice. we actually had such a good time, and it was such a nice event and nice weather, and it was really beautiful. So it was great. All right. So now let us. The only thing I would say is as follows. I didn't bring a coat with me, so I left my house in New York. And I'm saying I'm going into the taxi. I'm going to be in the airport. Get out of the taxi, go straight into the airport, JFK, and then fly to Miami. What do I need a coat for? So in Miami it was about 82 degrees. And then when I came back to New York, landed in JFK, now I have to find my Uber, and I'm carrying all these bags and valises. I didn't have a coat. And it was like 22 degrees, but the wind chill was probably like 12. So I think it was a 70-degree temperature difference. Yeah, I have the map there. It was quite exhilarating.
Could we move the weekly class to Miami then?
Yeah, yes, we should. We should. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Holeh haguf. There is a particular sickness that some people have, a physical sickness. To'amim hamar matok. There are people who taste something that is bitter, their taste buds are messed up. So, for example, for them, something that is normally bitter for other people, they'll taste it as sweet. Now, Rambam was a doctor, as you all know. He was quite a good doctor. We know that he was probably the greatest doctor of his generation because the king of Egypt, the Sultan of Egypt, took Harambam as his personal physician for him and his family. So Harambam is talking here as a medical practitioner. He apparently met people who had some sort of taste, I would call it maybe taste dysphoria, maybe that's a new word, right? Confusion about taste. So they taste something that's sweet, but they think it's bitter. The hamatok mal. On the other hand, things that are sweet, they taste bitter to this individual. I remember during COVID, I got COVID before the vaccine came out, and I remember one of the lingering side effects of COVID was that if you tasted wine, at least for me, I don't know, maybe everybody had the wine tasted very unsavory, and had a very unsavory taste to it.
When Rambam gives medical advice, does he do it from a medical perspective or a halachic perspective?
Medical,
does he
meaning
think it should apply to us today?
Exactly, that's a great question. So first of all, he was not giving advice, but you were asking me a question, let's say tangential. When Rambam gives medical advice, we only take the advice to the extent that it's medically accurate in our days. So, for example, maybe Harambam says something that's no longer relevant in our days or no longer accurate, then we wouldn't follow it. Harambam wrote books on medicine. I did not study these books on medicine, but I was told by someone that he took a very actually intelligent approach and that to a certain extent it's applicable today. I don't know, but I know there's a doctor who follows Harambam in his practice. And more than that, I can't evaluate because it's not my field.
To say, "Oh, make you lose your memory" and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, that's not. First of all, when the Gemara says stuff like that, you also have to understand that the Gemara, it may be a midrash, and maybe there's some deeper meaning, and they weren't giving medical advice. Maybe they were trying to teach something. Right? So you see, when we study the midrashim, we try to give a deeper explanation. But one is not obligated to accept the medical advice of people from hundreds and thousands of years ago, not because, God forbid, we disrespect them, not at all, but the same way we wouldn't expect people 500 years from now to take the medical advice, that we were giving today, right? All right. And there's a particular type of sickness or sick people. A person, there are people who they enjoy eating things that are actually not edible. Kehon he'athaf, for example, interesting, people who would eat soil. There are people who would eat charcoal. Yeah, interesting. All right. When you say, I have something very good for you, have a steak. You want to have some steak? No, that's horrible. You want to have maybe some salmon? Oh, that's horrible. You want to have something? They only like eating bad food. Kehon, for example, hapat. Bread? No, don't want it. Basar, you want meat? No. And there's different levels of this particular sickness. And again, Harambam is talking here from his medical experience.
So vegans have a personality disorder.
Interesting.
Don't answer.
So vegans are people who don't eat vegetables or anything that comes from...
Only vegetables.
Only vegetables. So they want to have milk?
No milk.
No.
Yeah, the answer is yes, definitely. Okay. Why? Like, why? Okay, I'm sorry. Mechila, I want to defend it. I don't understand why anybody would do that. No milk, no cheese.
My wife, I'll let you know.
Oh, oh my gosh. Okay. Please don't tell her. All right. All right. Kat b'nei adam. Similarly, there are people shenafshotehem cholot, that they have not a physical sickness, but that they have a psychological sickness. Mitavim ve'ohavim hadeot haraot. And these people, they enjoy dysfunctional personality traits, meaning for them to be dysfunctional at the psychological level is enjoyable. And if you tell them, hey, why don't you stop fighting with people, it's destroying your life. No, they enjoy it too much. Why don't you stop gambling your money away? They can't. It's just too enjoyable. They get a rush from that, right? And if you tell them, look, you can improve yourself, it's going to be an effort, you have to try, it's going to be a lot of work, they don't want to put in the time. And for them to try to become a better person is just too much. They just enjoy living a dysfunctional life. It's just too good for them. And of course, here also, the same way in the physical sicknesses, there was different levels. Also here, there's different levels of sickness. Now this is not Rambam speaking as a doctor. What we just read comes from Yeshaya Hanavi. So Isaiah speaks about the following, and here is a verse. Isaiah, in describing people who have this personality disorder, says the following. And this, Albert, so for example, this comes from the Torah. So this type of assessment that comes from the Torah, of course, we would accept, right? We wouldn't say, oh, this is, because there's a difference between a rabbi giving you his opinion on medicine, which doesn't come from the Torah, and a rabbi giving you something that comes from the Torah, right? So here the Torah says, Hoi ha'omerim laratov, woe unto those who they perceive good, and they, I'm sorry, the other way around. Laratov means they look at evil and think this is good. Velatov ra, and they look at good and they say this is bad. I'm going to give you a good example. So it ends up that the U.S. government spent about $30 million to examine how cocaine affects the concupiscence of Japanese, I don't remember whether it was monkeys or dolphins, it was some sort of Japanese animal, and they wanted to, if you give cocaine to that animal, how will it affect its concupiscence? So now that there's somebody saying, do we really want to spend $30 million on that? Then, okay, so now we had how many millions of dollars on condoms to Hamas terrorists in Gaza? What was it? 50, right. And like you have a whole, list of things. And now you tell them...
That might have been smart, for them not to multiply.
No, they were using it for...
Think about it.
to make explosives, meaning they were actually using the condoms, they were filling up with helium and sending like flammable material to Israel.
Israel's going to sell condoms at the beepers now?
Oh, okay, interesting. Right. So the
Rabbi, it was $2.3 million in taxpayer money to experiment with cocaine on beagle puppies.
yeah, right. Apparently they do this a lot. I'm not sure. Wow, these people are sick. They're actually sick people. So for them, this is like, wow, this is great. Like, let's have, let's try to have gender affirming care in Guatemala. I'm just calling it gender affirming care. Okay, so they think this is great, and when you stop it, they're like, oh, this is horrible. Like, what are we gonna do? So this is literally what Isaiah is talking about. People who are dysfunctional at the psychological level, and when you show something good to them, they're saying, oh no, this is bad. And when you show something bad to them, you say this is good. Samim poshech la'or. They confuse darkness with light. Ve'or la'choshech. And they confuse light with darkness. Samim mar lamatot. If you give them something bitter, For example, it says, "Umoseani mami mavet et ha'isha." The pasuk says that Shlomo HaMelech says, "I find nothing more bitter than a woman," which is to say, Shlomo HaMelech meant by this that if a person has an inappropriate relationship with a woman, it's going to just bring bitterness to his life. It always does. So he says,
I like that you coached that up.
"What do you mean?"
I always thought it was, in other words, Zachita, if you were,
Right.
then you're as a kid and dog. In other
Right.
words, she'll be, together with you. But if you're bum, then in other words, she's gonna be, your wife was like, the rabbi, it was in the Gemara, it was one rabbi that, she was like, my wife, I love it. No, it was, but it wasn't, no, am I wrong?
Only one?
Masechet Yevamot Daf Samech Gimel Amud Aleph on the bottom of the page.
Perfect.
Brings the story. Yeah, bring the Gemara.
I
I'll
believe
bring
you
the
trust
Gemara.
me, I do, I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
By the white lines.
It was Rav.
Mine,
His
mine.
son's name was Yehia.
I gotta say, I know.
His son's name was Yehia, and his father used to send him. I'll read you the story. Hold on one second.
Funded by the government.
Yeah, I was right here. By the way, just so you see, I didn't make that up. Look, what does it say? All right, Yevamot.
Good.
Amud Aleph, right? Bottom of the page.
By the white lines, that was right.
Okay, so it says, "Umose ani man mimavet et haisha." That's a verse, right? Rav havake masare le debitu. So Rav, his wife, she used to cause him pain, nag him, right? Yavala, avidi li talpuche abdale chimse. He would ask for dinner. She says, honey, what do you want for dinner? Like tell me what you want. So you say, I want something like beans. And she would make the exact opposite. She would make like.
And eventually said the opposite of what he wanted, right?
So no matter what he asked for, exactly. So no matter what he asked for, she would always make him the opposite of what he asked for, and vice versa. If he asked for talbuchesh, she'll give him. So his son, he gadal Chiyah Bere. He had a son called Chiyah, who eventually became one of the, not the Rabbi Chiyah, different one. Apich amar la. Lach ima. So now the son was lying to the mother because he knew that the mother is going to switch on the father and do the opposite of what he wants. So the son was very clever. He would always say the opposite of what the father wants, knowing that the mother will switch it.
Right.
And now the father is saying, "Look at this. Your wife is becoming my wife. Your mom. I'm sorry, is becoming really good, right?" So then the son admitted. He said, "No, I'm switching. I'm switching on her." So anyway, so he got angry at him. Right, so you're right, that's Mosani Mamre Daisha, but the Peshat of the Pasuk is that if a person has an inappropriate relationship, it's always going to lead to bitterness. So there's some people who like bitterness, who don't understand that bitterness is a bad thing, but they like bitterness and they do that because there's a lot of people when they mess up their lives, there's almost like, it's like in psychology, there's people who have a death wish. Right, and it's a deep trait within the person that they take risks and they do things that they know are destructive to themselves, but that's what they want. Right, Haramam is not just writing this, Yeshaya Navi is not just making this up. So sometimes a person inside of himself, he acts in a destructive way, and consciously he's like in it for the thrill, he's in it for the fun, but subconsciously he's in it for the destruction that it's going to bring about, right? In fact, like advertisers, they used to be, I don't know if they still do it, they probably do. They used to use like subliminal messages in advertising. And a lot of times they would play on the death wish. And they would actually, like even for cigarette advertising, would play on the fact that cigarettes are actually dangerous, right? So like you say, oh my gosh, why would you smoke a cigarette? Knowing that, right? And like, well, yes, sometimes that's actually the point, right? So it's interesting. Human psychology is very, very interesting.
People choose death or that which is wrong in life. In other words, they don't want to be alive. They prefer
No, they're prone to self-destructive behaviors.
Halo kol mesanai ahavu mavet, says Shlomo HaMelech. Those who hate God love death. Explicit. Right? By the way, take the Russia-Ukraine. I think wars are a type of insanity, human insanity. But given the Russia-Ukraine war as an example, Trump is going to resolve it, not because he's, some saint or he doesn't want wars and he realized they're destructive, but you'll see how he's going to resolve it because it's resolvable. They don't want to resolve these wars. There's like a certain sickness in humanity. When wars come out, they come out. Well, yes, there's always the external reason for the war, and there's.
Business.
What?
Someone's making money. A lot of people making
Someone
money.
selling the missiles.
Are you kidding me? You know what type of money
Crazy.
goes into destroying
Bidens have so much.
and then rebuilding, and then the banks financing the weapons and the rebuilding, and the insurance companies insuring all of these assets, and then the reinsurance companies insuring this, and then the cargo ships that have to develop, that have to transport all the military. It's wow, like just wow. So, but that's external. There's a certain thing about humanity in a degenerate state, obviously, which craves destruction. So, for example, C.G. Jung, one of the great psychologists of the 20th century, in my estimation, he predicted that the Germans will go crazy. He was analyzing the dreams of his patients, and there was a Germanic mythological god, I think it was called Gangrok, I forgot the name. And this mythological god is a god of war, and it was appearing in the dreams of his patients. And he wrote before World War II that Germany is going to go crazy, right? So Germany, so yeah, were there reasons why Germany went crazy? Yeah, there was the hyperinflation, the post-World War I terms of German surrender, or rather German capitulation, but there is this element within where the destruction is obvious. So I mean, if you're the powers that are against Germany, I mean, you also should know that doing that to Germany will just lead to destruction and the next world war, right? You're setting up the next world war, right? So one of the great things of the post-World War II order was that humanity came to its senses and it said, what can we do to arrange international affairs so we don't get any more world wars? That was it was a brilliant thing where America as a leader said, look, until now, countries that win at war, and this is what happened in World War I, always subjugate the countries that lose in the wars. And this creates bitterness, and when the country that loses the war now is subjugated, they become very bitter, and then there's a new war. That's what happened with Germany in World War I. So the post-World War II order, which was set up largely by America, was, oh look, let's stop that, and even the countries that lose, let's give them the opportunity to do commerce and open up all the waterways in the world, and the US Navy will guarantee the security of the waterways in the world, and in this way there'll be commerce and there'll be prosperity, and there won't be any more losers, so to speak. That was the idea of America, which is brilliant. Then in the Obama era, it began to unravel, and it really unraveled, and then you saw war beginning to break out in the world, and now Trump is trying to stop that. Why am I giving you this history and geopolitics? Because I'm trying to point out that wars have the superficial reason, but there's always that underlying tension that there is an element in humanity that craves destruction and barbarism. And when that element is unbridled, then things can really go south very quickly. So that's what he's talking about here. That's what Yeshaya Navi is talking about. Ha'ozevim orchot. Ve'alehem ne'emah. There's another pasuk that says, Ha'ozevim orchot yosher. There is a straight path. And it's obvious what the straight path is. Just go straight. No. They go into the darkness, right? So that's the creepy element of humanity, right? By the way, I have to say, I was traveling this time, and I had my kippah on. I mean, sometimes I have a baseball cap, but this time I'm just going to go with the kippah. And you see the goyim. There's a lot of goyim that don't like us. It's like, and you see it in their face, and I'm kind of cracking up, like, like, you loser, like, yeah, we're Jews, we're richer, we're smarter, we're better looking, we have good families, and you people are a bunch of losers, and you deserve it. Why are you against us? Like, like, we're bringing prosperity. Wherever we go in the world, we bring prosperity, we bring success, you see, I was in Fort Lauderdale on the way out. Man, you see the hicks there, they're looking at you. they're like, right? Have you experienced it?
Yeah.
Right? It's crazy. Like, and I'm not one to really talk about this, but this time I had my kippah on. I wanted to see what happened. Like, I could tell the difference between a baseball cap, how are you, sir, and a kippah. Like, okay. Okay. So that's interesting. That's sickness. Umay takanat choleh hanefesh. So how can you cure a person who has, now going back to individuals, who has a sickness? Go to the Chachamim. One thing about a Chacham who knows Torah, who understands, for example, the Chot De'ot, who understands the writings of Yeshaya Hanavi, etc., Mishleh, Kohelet, he can cure the sickness. They can cure the ailments of people. Back in the day, sometimes people would come to my father, and the son met somebody, a Goya, and he wanted to marry the Goya, and the father didn't know what to do, and there was several cases like this, and my father would talk to these people, and they wouldn't marry Goyot after they spoke to him. I don't know what, I do know some of the things he said, but that's a good example. This person, Chazit, this young person, he met a girl, and it's going to bring bitterness to his life. No Jew ever marries a Goya and says, wow, that was the best decision I ever made, having Goy children and Goy grandparents, Goy in-laws. That's just wonderful. No, never happened. So it's a choleh nefashot, it's a type of sickness. And a Chacham can cure that, right? And the way the Chacham cures it is by adjusting the personality traits of that individual. They teach them, what they have to do so that they have a clearer vision of what's happening. And then once you have that clear vision, you know how to, I want to make a different decision in my life than what I've been doing. And eventually this person who's cured by the Chacham will go back on the good path. If a person is aware that he has a particular ailment, that has a particular weakness, he fights too much, he's, bar minan, God forbid, sometimes people, they hit their children, they beat their children, I want to say, not hit them, they beat their children or whatever, bar minan, or other types of things, you have to go to the Chacham, you have to cure yourself. And if you don't do that, there's a pasuk that Shlomo HaMelech says, Chochma u'musar evilim bazu. Evil people who are really evil, they don't want to cure themselves. They enjoy being the way they are. And that's the ultimate sickness. So one sickness is, you want to cure yourself. I don't like this. I don't like what's happening in my life. The worst is, I know what's happening in my life, but I don't want to, I want to continue this. All right?
Chacham has a big obligation to be prepared and know how to do, he's got to be a psychologist.
Yeah, I believe that. I seriously do believe that.
Yeah.
When I was young, I read a lot of books on psychology, and it helped me understand things in the Torah. That's the truth. Okay, let's continue. Now, this is a blueprint for what can a person do to cure himself? What's the grail, so to speak, or what's the key, the code? So there is a general rule that anybody can implement in their own lives, and it's as follows: Mishu bal chema. Let's say a person is, again, let's take one of these spectrums, anger. So a person is on this, the left, let's say the left side of the spectrum. Okay, so he's on the left side of the spectrum, he gets angry all the time. Now, where is he supposed to be? He's supposed to be in the middle. So now, but he's here. You tell the person, no matter what happens to you, you have to act in a way where you don't get angry. So even if bad things happen, normally you'd get angry for the smallest thing, boom, Here, you have to be on the other extreme. That even if somebody hit you, even if somebody cursed you, even if somebody, did the worst things to you, lo yargish kelal, you don't feel that emotional rage, right? So go to the other extreme. And be in the other extreme for a long time, until the anger is uprooted from the heart. You understand the idea? By the way, anybody who tries to do this, I can give you I make one prediction, and it will always happen true. It will always come true. And here is the prediction. If a person gets angry and he says, okay, that's it, I'm going to be on the other extreme, like Rambam said, the minute he makes that commitment, there's going to be at least 5 things that are going to try to get him upset within the next hour. I'm telling you, no, it's just, and why does that happen? Because God wants to give the person the opportunity to actually fix himself. Because how can you possibly fix yourself if you're not giving the opportunity to do so, right? So it'll happen. Like within 1 hour, suddenly 5 things will go wrong that challenge you. That's intentional. The pasuk says, "Ki malachav yesabelach lishmulcha b'chol derechecha." God has malachim following the individual, and these malachim are trying to help the individual and guide the individual, right? So if a person says, I want to control my anger, the malachim, at the instructions of God, will tell the individual, well, here's a good reason to get angry. Can you control yourself, please? Do it. Right.
The ideal is not to be, I thought the ideal for anger was not the middle.
Yes, you're correct. We'll see that later. But for now, we just want to explain these different situations so there's a clear understanding of how to do it. But we'll see that later. If a person was arrogant, a person is very arrogant, he's very conceited, he feels, like whatever. It's also a sickness. Sometimes you're in a party or like a social event, and you can tell some people are really nice and friendly, and you can tell other people are just like very conceited, and it's sad. Like I feel bad for people like that because people who are conceited, they generally live miserable lives.
Probably the wife's fault, Rabbi.
Probably it definitely, yeah, no question, definitely. All right, so let's say a person is very conceited, very arrogant. He should train himself to be very lower than his stature. Normally, he sits in the front, sit in the back, right? As an example. Normally you wear beautiful suits and jewelry, expensive watch, and whatever. Put on very simple clothing, put on a very simple watch, something that's under your stature. You understand the idea? Normally you drive a beautiful car, whatever, Ferrari. Now you're gonna drive give me a car.
Buick.
A Buick? A Buick isn't so bad, is it? I don't know.
A Ford.
Ford, yeah.
Cheap Ford.
Cheap Ford. Cheap. A
Kia,
Ford.
Kia.
A Ford
Hyundai, Kia.
Pinto. Is that the name? Ford Pinto? Very small guy. Okay. Hyundai, whatever it is. Okay, Chazak, people are going to be watching this again.
Rabbi, a Susita.
A Susita. Okay, I don't know what that. A Korean car. A car made in Korea. Okay, there you go.
Israeli brand car, Rabbi Susita.
Is it? Really?
Yeah, years ago, in the 80s.
I don't even, wow, okay. So you get the idea, and in this way you uproot the arrogance. And once you're in the state where, okay, you were on this side of the spectrum, now you're all the way here, and you stayed here for several months, now you can go to the middle. You understand? And then return to the middle road, because the middle road is always the good road. And once you're in that middle road, you will go in that road all your life. I just want to bring to your attention, if you go backwards, the pasuk says, and look at the first page, on the very, very bottom of the first page, if a person goes in the middle road, God will bless him. Meaning he will have prosperity, he will have a good life. Right? A lot of the prosperity, a lot of times, and not all the times, but sometimes prosperity comes to an individual by virtue of the fact that he has the correct personality traits that follow the Torah. Shneimar. And how do we know this? The pasuk says, "Leman habi Adonai al Abraham et asher diber alav." Because Abraham Avinu would go in the ways of God. God said, "I want to bring upon Abraham Avinu I have a special promise, I have a special blessing that I'm going to bring for Abraham Avinu." All right, so that's the reward. Not every mitzvah has reward in this world. This particular mitzvah, where you fix your personality trait, the reward is in this world, right? That's an unusual thing. Right? Very few mitzvot have that. This is one of them. All right. Let's continue. ועל קו זה יעשה בשאר כל הדעות. And this is how you fix the rest of your personality traits. אם ההלכה יעשה אחד, if you're on one extreme, יחק עצמו לכסה השני, go to the other extreme, ינהוג בזמן מרובה שיחזור לדרך הטובה, and then you stay in that other, the opposite extreme until you're used to it, and then you go back to the middle, and that's great. But there are two exceptions to the rule, and only two exceptions. There are two personality traits that actually, to be an extremist in these personality traits is praiseworthy, is correct, and one should go to the other extreme, and we're going to see what those two personality traits are. Yesh de'ot she'asu lo le'adam. There are two traits that a person should not be in the middle. He should be on the other side of the spectrum, and the first one is gova lev. People who have a high heart, haughty people, right? She'en haderech hatova she'yeh adam anav bilvad. It's not enough to just be circumspect, reserved. No. Ela she'yeh shafel ruach. You should be of a low spirit. Never think highly of yourself. If you think highly of yourself, that is considered to be an ill trait from the perspective of the Torah. Why do you think highly of yourself? If you feel that you have no sins, that itself is a sin, as Rambam is, according to legend, told somebody on the night of Kippur when they were doing vidui, and he told Rambam, I don't know what to say vidui about. I had such a great year. I was so good this year. I'm not sure. Should I say vidui? Shouldn't I say vidui? And Rambam told him, you should actually say vidui about the fact that you don't know anything that you did wrong this year. That is the reason you should be saying vidui. So, if a person, what are you arrogant about? What are you haughty about? Like for what reason? If you got blessings from God, say thank you to Hashem. If you have a beautiful, good family, good wife, good children, again, thank you to Hashem. Nobody can plan any of that, right? You can't plan that. You can't, right? So all the good things in our lives, of course, you have to work and you have to make an effort and you have to work hard and never take anything for granted at work or in any, right? You have to work hard. But if you end up succeeding, thank you to Hashem. So if you get on a flight and it's not delayed, thank you to Hashem. I was in, just to vent a little. So I was supposed to leave Monday in the daytime, like around 1 o'clock. We're in the airport and the flight is delayed. We have to check the computer system. The computer crashed. Okay, whatever. 45-minute delay turns into a 1-hour delay, turns into a 2-hour delay. Okay, now we have to reboot the system, and we have the maintenance team coming in to reboot the system. And then, I'm looking at the maintenance team. I'm like I don't know, I don't see any Elon Musk type employees walking in. They're looking at these regular maintenance workers, with tools. What are they? They're gonna. Okay, the plane is definitely gonna fly. And then while we're there, we got the news about the Delta plane crashing in Toronto. That just, really lifted our spirits there. So then finally, after about 3-4 hour delays, they let us back on the plane. We're taking off. My wife is looking at me. I don't know if I want to get on the plane. I said, what are we gonna do? Let's just get on, whatever. So we get on the plane. We're about to where the plane is going forward. Very exciting. We're gonna be in the air soon. 3 or 4 hours later, we're gonna be in New York. It's going forward. Suddenly it stops. Yes, this is your captain. There's high winds in New York City. We're going to stay on the tarmac for another 45 minutes. I'm like, okay, very nice. Looking around. We stop. An hour later, this is your captain. We're having engine trouble. Everybody off the plane. So at this point, it's 7 o'clock at night. And we get off. I tell the guy at the out, can I just have my luggage? Go back to I knew at this point the plane ain't taking off. And I was the only one who wanted my luggage, and he didn't give me the luggage. I said, okay, whatever. Went back to the hotel. It was actually quite beautiful. I met my friends for dinner. At about 9:30 at night, another person from the community, I'm not going to say his name, he was on that flight. He texted me, because he stayed in the airport, Rabbi, you were right. They just canceled the flight. Anyway, so if your plane takes off on time, say thank you to Hashem. No, I mean that, you can't, so what are you arrogant about?
If your plane lands right side up, just think of that.
No, if your plane lands upside down and it doesn't explode, that would really say thank you. That was crazy, by the way.
What a mess.
That was, and there was fire, like, you know what? I was like,
Caught on fire.
right, it caught on fire, then the fire stopped. Like, what was that? Like, what happened to the fire?
The wings caught on fire, but the wings broke off before.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was crazy.
Probably the female pilot, Rabbi.
I don't know what happened there. I believe there was some maybe religious Jew studying Gemara, and the miracle happened, and it saved the whole plane. I think it was Harav David Yosef. He says he was on a flight with his father, and the plane was going in for a crash landing, and the whole flight, Harav Yosef was studying Gemara, and people are panicking because like the plane is like shaking and up and down, and the son is telling the father, "Listen, you have to stop studying. This is dangerous. The plane is about to crash." And the father said, "I'm studying Torah. Like, leave me alone." And everyone's like panicking, and they're screaming, and this and that, and they're sure it's going to crash, and then it's some miraculous thing happens, and the plane just has a very smooth landing. And Harav David Yosef says that the captain actually came out. He knew that Harav Yosef was on the plane, and he said, "I want to thank this. If we made this, if there was a miracle, the plane was going to crash, and we have to thank this rabbi because it was his presence that saved all of us." That's something like that. That was the story. So it lands right side up. You say thank you. It lands upside down and it doesn't crash. It doesn't explode. You say thank you. So again, the arrogance is a very bad trait, and that's why one should be of a very low spirit. Right? Right. And if a person, yeah. It doesn't say that Moshe Rabbeinu was circumspect. He was extremely circumspect. Anab meod, right? Lo ne'eman anab bilvad, right? You should be humble. The word, the English word for that is humble, humility, right? A person should have humility. This is like great advice, especially for children. I've seen so many situations where the parents say one thing and the kids refuse to listen to the parents. And the advice of parents is usually good advice. Or elders giving advice to younger people, like in the days of Shlomo HaMelech when he died, the Chava'am had his young buddies, and all the elders were saying, "Listen, you should give the people a tax break. Your father Shlomo was imposing high taxes, but then again he was Shlomo HaMelech, and things were great. And after Shlomo died, things were going downhill. So the elders were saying you should lower the taxes, give the people a break, make them feel good." And then he went to the young people, and the young people were saying, "No, you should higher the taxes," and and even like threaten, liabilities against them, and he did that, and he followed the advice of the young. Now, for young people to say that is a bit arrogant. I mean, if the older people and they're giving you advice, then don't be arrogant. What do they know? Well, they had some experience, and you might not have had. Anyway, the country split in half after that. There was a revolution, and after that, the country split in half. 10 tribes went, God knows where they went, and 2 tribes, they ended up in Babylonia, and here we are today in Brooklyn. And what's the temperature outside right now?
24 degrees.
Yes. At least let it snow. If it's going to be so cold, let's get some snow on, all right? No, I don't know.
Snow.
What? I know, the inch or two, if it's going to be cold, let's at least get the nice, an inch or two of snow just to make everything white and pretty. No?
Yeah.
On Shabbat. Okay, fine. Anyway.
Shovel your car out, you go.
No, but like an inch or two, you don't need to, inch or two, you just drive. It's not a foot of snow. Okay, I get it. Anyway, don't worry, I'm not making any prayers. I was just expressing my opinion on the matter. Okay. All right. So that's why a person should be exceedingly humble, of a low spirit, not think highly of himself. And that's why you look at Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was Moshe Rabbeinu, and yet he thought he was like completely unworthy. I mean, he just, he wanted to stay in Midian, and he didn't want to go to Egypt and rescue the Jewish people, not because he didn't care about that. He just didn't think he was worthy. He was absolutely convinced that he's not worthy to do this, right? So it's a trait of a great man to feel a sense of humility, right? And on the opposite side, if a person is arrogant and he thinks, I'm so great, look what I did. This person, it's like he's denying God. And I explain why you're denying God, because if you think that you're responsible for all the good things in your life, well, not necessarily, right? Right? All these good things, you have to work hard. You have to be smart. You have to make the right decisions. But boy, do you need God's help, right? So the pasuk says, if you become an arrogant person, you're going to forget God, and you're going to forget that God gave you everything that you have, and bar minan, you can then lose it all. A person who is arrogant, this person should be excommunicated. Meaning he is excommunicated by who? By God. And even a little. Alright? So that's the first trait. And the second trait we have about, can we go another minute or two?
Yeah, go.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay. וכן הכעס, דהרעה היא עד לבון. And also anger is a very bad thing. Because when a person gets angry, he's losing control. He's losing emotional control. And when people are angry, they do things that they later on regret. Whether it's pressing the send button on the email, whether it's just acting or saying something that's just that you later embarrassed that you acted this way or said this whatever you said, right? It's a terrible trait, right? That a person should be extremely careful never to get angry. Even if it's something that you need to get angry about, you shouldn't feel the internal anger, but rather, and this is the way to do it. Let's say, for example, your kids are misbehaving. Your children are misbehaving. I feel like, oh, it's nice. Oh, it's okay, honey. Like, that's fine. Yeah, it's fine that you took mommy's favorite plate and threw it on the floor. So that's going to be your attitude. Like, your kids will come out horribly. So you have to get angry at them. But you have to feel internal anger. You can show external anger and pretend like, well, what did you just do here? Like, you're right, like you're pretending, but internally you have to be in full control of yourself. Let's say your community leader, let's say you're a leader of the community, and I don't something they did something bad. They go, what's going on? It's crazy. Why did they do that? Right? So it's a show, but it's a necessary show, right? Because sometimes you have to put on a persona of anger, but it should never be internal. It should always be external, right? Always be in control. Right. So you're showing anger in order to help the individual become better, right? So you put on that external persona of anger because you want to cause them pain in the sense of, I feel like, right? Psychological pain, I mean, right? But inside you're completely in full control. You become like an actor. And in the context of being an actor, you are allowed to get angry, but you always should be in full control of your emotions. All right, that's really good advice to anyone. And are there any questions? No questions? Okay, all right, so.
Is that like imitating God also? In other words, where God gets, I don't know how you do that. I mean, it's an external anger that it's though God doesn't internally, but he comes across with anger at times when we are out of line.
But of course, internally, God has no anger. Of course.
Because he has no body, and there's no way of understanding that, right? So, same thing.
Yes, exactly. That's a very, very good point. The only one you're not imitating is arrogance, because it says Adonai Malach Geut Lavesh. Only God, who is supreme, and he's aware of his supreme position, right? That's the one thing where it's not imitating God, but on the contrary, it's because of God's presence that we must show humility. Yes? All right.